He's very serious, much more serious than he ever has been.
So your father has said he's going to decide maybe in February about running for president. Have you given him your opinion on whether he should run?
Well, he's very serious, much more serious than he ever has been. And I can tell that because we actually sat down, the two of us, for 2 hours recently. And I don't think that's happened since I had children. Because since then, of course, I've been the conduit, right, to bring bring the grandchildren, right? Yeah. So he's very serious. It's he and Callista are thinking about it very hard. It's a hard decision.
What did you recommend in those 2 hours?
I recommended, he asked me and I said, it's not my decision, and it's not my decision. Right. I think he would run a very good campaign. I think he's honestly the brightest person I've ever met, ever. I mean, I know he's my father, but I don't say that lightly. He's very bright. He's incredibly hardworking. All of my life, he's always done what he thought was best for our country. And I think he'll take all that into consideration. So, we'll see in February or March, but it's his decision, and we'll have to wait and see.
But I would assume that you would like to see your father run, as you think,
I don't know if I want to say like to see. I think it's up to him, and of course I would support him. I mean, I've always helped him in his campaigns ever since I was, 6, I think. So it's been a long time. But again, it's not. It's up to he and Callista have to decide: is it right for them? Is it the right time? But he is thinking about it very, very seriously, and we'll have to wait and see.
And what about this year made it more serious for him than in the past? What is he seeing in the country in the need?
I think the major thing is how far we've changed in the last few years. I mean, if you look at where we were 4 years ago, and then you had the rise of the left with President Obama. Clearly, the last 2 years, Obama he had both the House and the Senate working with him, so he was able to pull through a lot of things very rapidly. It's going to change, obviously, this year since we now have a Republican House. But I think he's very concerned. I think he's very concerned because when you get down to the core argument, when you talk about the taxes, you talk about where we are, the fundamental difference is that the conservatives really believe that God gave people rights and we loan them to the government. They believe, as Calvin Coolidge did, that it's the people's money and the government's supposed to spend it as wisely as possible. If you look at the language of President Obama and the administration, they really believe that it's the government's money. They really believe that the government has the power. They really believe they can solve all those problems from Washington. That is a huge fundamental difference. And I think we're going to have this really interesting conversation for the next 2 years as a nation about which one's right. Now, I know which one I believe is right, but I think as a country we have to come to grips with it's not just partisan politics, it's not just arguing about tax cuts, we have a fundamental disconnect about how the country should operate.
And that's where your father's sort of coming from in his thought of running for president.
Exactly.